Being so close to the ocean provides a great many advantages for the state of Maine. However, during the War of 1812, this put the city that we're visiting today at risk from the British Empire, being the closest American harbor to England. So let's travel to Eastport to visit the remnants of Fort Sullivan, to hear the tale of soldiers that might still be on watch to this day. Episode 16, Fort Sullivan, Eastport, Maine. Settlers started arriving in the area we now know as Eastport back in 1772. It wasn't incorporated into a town until 1798. A lovely seaside place, it was once a harbor that rivaled New York City in terms of importance. As the easternmost city in the U.S., this would have been a major stop for shipments headed to Europe and beyond. Canning fish and sardines was a major business in the city, owing to Maine's maritime traditions. Sadly, the fishing industry took a major hit during the Great Depression, and most of those businesses were lost. Today, tourism is a primary driver of the economy. For this story, we'll be investigating the site of a former military fort in Eastport.
Hey there, welcome back to Stranger Maine. I brought you down east yet again to the city of Eastport, where I'm standing at the remnants of the historic Fort Sullivan, which, I'm not going to lie, it's a little underwhelming, mainly because there's not really much left of the fort, minus the barracks. My wife is from this area, and I kind of didn't think to ask her ahead of time how much of the fort is left. And pretty much this sign is still here, but the hill it's sitting on is also now home to Shed High School, so go Tigers. But anyway, the story I want to tell you about today actually involves the War of 1812. British forces actually occupied Eastport for about 4 years during that time. Eastport was a very, very important place in that time because minus New York City, this was one of the first big ports you could pull into. It actually still has some pretty significant portside places today, which I'll bring you back to later on in this episode when I'm telling you the ghost story part. But the fort itself was here as a defensive measure, and unfortunately when the British showed up during the War of 1812, they brought a trio of warships that just laid siege to this place, pounding it with cannons, and eventually the fort was damaged enough that they had to surrender. At that point, it wasn't even a part of the state of Maine. This was still part of Massachusetts. British forces then took the fort, or what was left of it, and occupied it for the next 4 years. Hundreds of British troops entered the city, and they actually forced all of the citizens here to take an oath of loyalty to England and the crown. There's a document in the library that actually has the signatures of all the people who have done that. So needless to say, this particular area was a little unfun to live in during that time for about 1814 to 1818 when the British ceded the town and the fort back to the States. But sometimes people don't want to let go of the past, and not just people alive and historians. Sometimes it's the spirits themselves. So let me tell you all about it.
Back in 1814, 3 British warships, the Ramillies, the Rover, and the Terror, descended upon Fort Sullivan. After a cannon siege, the fort was surrendered to their forces. Eastport was then occupied by the British for the next several years. In Eastport, some people claim that when the fog rolls in from the ocean, a mysterious figure appears. Stationed in the ruins of the old fort, the phantom appears to be dressed in a British uniform. The ghost reportedly carries a weapon with them, as if they are on patrol of the area. The question becomes, who could this be? Among the occupying forces were a number of deserters, some who drowned attempting to leave the area. A guardhouse fire claimed the lives of 2 others, and there was one soldier who was scheduled to be executed for committing some sort of heinous crime. However, the stories say that this man ended his own life before his sentence could be carried out. Any one of them could be the solitary figure that appears when the foghorns sound over Eastport. If you should be there, maybe you will see him in the mist.
While the fort itself is gone, the barracks, fortunately, is still here. And as you can see, it was constructed back in 1808, and they're currently trying to make efforts to save this particular spot. So is the ghost of the lone British soldier still out there patrolling? Who knows? But I gotta admit, there'd be a lot worse places to spend all of eternity. Thanks for watching Stranger Maine, and I'll see you next time.